Hello and welcome to the Literary Lair, and to our 5th anniversary. I know, 5 years. But this year is a little different than all the other milestones we've hit before. See, I'm 20 years old, I'll be 21 in June, so at this point, 5 years is exactly 1/4 of my life, give or take, which essentially means that I've been producing this show for 1/4 of the time that I've existed, which is mind-blowing to me. I mean, so much has changed since I started this show. I've been through 2 reviewer outfits, technically 3 if you count my rotating t-shirt from the early episodes, 3 cameras, more than 100 episodes, and 1 unsuccessful attempt to get featured on That Guy with the Glasses. I've been through a lot in these 5 years. I mean, I was just a stupid high school student with a video camera. And now I'm a stupid college student with a video camera. I've seen bad books, good books, and everything in between. And I wouldn't trade these past 5 years for anything in the world. Except maybe a time machine. Anyway, you're not here to listen to me talk, you're here for the review. And oh boy, do I have a treat for you today. For the most part in the anniversary episodes, we've looked at novelizations of exceptionally good episodes. Doctor Who and the Auton Invasion, Doctor Who and the Cybermen, Doctor Who and the Daleks, The Three Doctors, and Shada, all based on classic and beloved episodes. Well, except for Shada, but if it had gotten finished, it would have been classic and beloved. This year, I want to change it up a bit, so we're looking at a bad episode, or rather one that I think is bad. Fan reaction to it is mixed, and I can't find a definite on whether Doctor Who fans like it or hate it. The most I've gotten is that it's middle-ish. Castrovalva, the first story to feature Peter Davison's 5th Doctor. Now this one is sort of straying from our usual fare because unlike all the other novelizations, this one was written by the writer of the episode, Christopher H. Bidmead, who also wrote the 4th Doctor's swan song, Legopolis, which was the preceding episode. I'm going to get this straight out of the way. I hate Castrovalva. It's slow, boring, and gives Peter Davison almost nothing to do. But don't go clicking onto another video since I've given my opinion here, cause that's my opinion on the episode. But as we've seen before with Sliders the Novel, novelizations can sometimes take material that didn't make it into the televised version and utilize it to improve the story. Or like Shada, show us something that would have been hard to properly capture on film. So maybe Castrovalva just wasn't meant to be filmed, and maybe there's exposition that didn't come across as clear that hampered my enjoyment. Let's see if the novelization is the superior version, and look at Castrovalva. The cover is crap. It's a generic Starfield that resembles the Starfield seen in the intro from Tom Baker's final season until the end of Colin Baker's run. We've got the Doctor Who neon tube logo in red and the little Target logo at the top, the title of the episode with the author's name under it, and then a creepy photo of Peter Davison smiling. It's just weird. For one thing, it's unlike all the other novelizations, where they either showed the villain or a combination of the Doctor and the villain, depending on if it's originals or reprints. This is just a poorly cropped photo of Peter Davison smiling at me, and frankly, it makes me feel uncomfortable. And I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like the eyes follow me. I mean, look at this. eerie. I mean, compared to even the cover of Shada, which was a starfield with an eclipse and the title written in bits of the TARDIS, it's just garbage. I mean, I know that Castrovalva didn't have a lot going on, but there wasn't a better cover idea for it. What about have the cover be the Zero Room, or what if it was like an illustration of the city of Castrovalva? What I'm saying is that creepy Peter Davison was not the way to go. And what is that face even supposed to be? Joy? Excitement? I'll reiterate something I said about Jamie's face in an illustration from my first anniversary episode. What is wrong with his face? Let's get to the story. Alright, so this requires some backstory since we haven't tackled anything from Peter Davison's era in the show proper. The good thing is that as this is a regeneration episode, I don't have to give any backstory on the Fifth Doctor himself, since his character is established in the story. Or at least it should be. Anyway, the Fourth Doctor's final season saw the departure of Romana and K9, and the introduction of Adric at the end of the so-called E-Space trilogy. Adric is, well, he's Wesley Crusher, except before Wesley Crusher existed. He's from a planet of mathematicians and stowed away on the TARDIS during the trilogy, and after Romana left, became the Doctor's new companion. Together, they went to Traken and stopped the plot by the Master, played by Jeffrey Beavers, to take over the planet's immense power source to grant himself new life. The Master naturally escapes, but not before taking over the body of the heir to the power, Tramus, played by Anthony Ainley, who would play the Master for the remainder of the classic series. In the Fourth Doctor's final episode, Legopolis, the Master attempts to use the power of Legopolis to, you guessed it, take over the universe.
Of course!
Sometimes I feel like I'm the only one still using that joke. However, he ends up nearly destroying it, only stopping a massive destructive wave of entropy with the help of the Doctor. During the episode, Nyssa, Tramus's daughter, returns, brought by a strange being known as the Watcher, and a new companion is introduced, Tegan Javanka, an Australian flight attendant who gets mixed up in the scheme when she mistakes the TARDIS for an actual police box. The Master naturally betrays the Doctor and pushes him from a telescope, and the Doctor plummets to the ground, triggering a regeneration with the aid of the Watcher, a manifestation of a future Doctor or something. It's never really explained. And that's where we pick up, with the aftermath of the Doctor's regeneration, and their infiltration of a secure scientific research station. The Doctor is a little out of it, and that isn't made better by the fact that law enforcement shows up to question how they got onto the Pharos project. They load the Doctor into an ambulance, and Adric acts as a distraction to allow Nyssa and Tegan to steal the ambulance to get the Doctor to the TARDIS. Adric is caught by the guards and taken for questioning, but the Master's TARDIS shows up and interferes, abducting Adric momentarily and then just releasing him, which neither Nyssa or Tegan even wonder about after Adric returns, though I guess they are preoccupied with the Doctor's condition. They go back to the TARDIS, and Adric, the only one who knows how to pilot, takes off, as the Doctor wanders off to find something called a Zero Room, which is cut off from the entire universe and nothing ever happens in there. Oh, so it's a room that plays a non-stop marathon of Friends. And if you thought I was going to go for the low-hanging Seinfeld joke, you don't know me very well. The TARDIS is in flight, and Adric goes after the Doctor, finding him unraveling the Fourth Doctor's scarf in order to find his way back, talking about how his regeneration is failing. Nyssa and Tegan stay in the console room and find that the TARDIS is stuck in a path straight to the first hydrogen inrush event, which will kill them all. The Fifth Doctor picks up a new outfit along the way, an Edwardian cricket outfit, and he finds the Zero Room, and he gets himself into position to remain there until his regeneration sorts itself out. After he does, Nyssa and Tegan discover that the Adric that was with them was a projection, and that he's actually being used by the Master in some way on his TARDIS. Nyssa and Tegan try to stop the TARDIS, but the Master locked the trajectory, and the only way out is by asking the Doctor to do what he does best, save the day. They wake him up, and he, while weakened, manages to solve the problem by generating thrust by deleting rooms in the TARDIS. However, in his haste, he accidentally ejected the Zero Room, and so his regeneration is doomed to fail again. But Nyssa and Tegan use the TARDIS index file to discover that some planets have environments similar to the Zero Room, leading them to setting the TARDIS controls to the titular Castrovalva.
He said it! He said it!
The Doctor assembles a portable Zero Room out of the doors to the room and tasks Nyssa and Tegan to carry him to the city. But as they scout out, the Doctor steps out of the cabinet and finds his own way to the city. And so the Doctor tries to survive his regeneration, Nyssa and Tegan try to help the Doctor and figure out what happened to Adric, and they all try to figure out about some strange goings-on in Castrovalva. The Doctor stabilizes a bit and goes to the library on Castrovalva, discovering that their history books are 500 years old, but detail the history of Castrovalva up to the present day, which naturally is a little weird. He also finds that the same location can be found in several places on the same map. Also weird. The Doctor befriends the librarian, who helps him try something. The Doctor gets weakened and asks for the Zero Cabinet again and sends Nyssa and Tegan off to find it. Eventually, it's discovered that the leader of the town, the Portreeve, is actually the Master, and he created Castrovalva using block transfer computation, which didn't actually work like this at all in Legopolis, but whatever. He demands the Zero Cabinet, which houses the Doctor, but it turns out that the Doctor dumped all the history books in it, so that he could find out the Master's plan, and finds that Castrovalva is being powered by Adric. The Master starts getting rid of his created Castrovalvan people, and the librarian, Shardavan, demonstrates that he is a real person by swinging across the trap and gives his life to free Adric, who helps the Doctor, Nyssa, and Tegan escape, as the Master is captured and left trapped with his own creations. The Doctor and the gang walk back to the TARDIS, and the Doctor's regeneration has finally been saved, and he says that whoever he is, he feels absolutely splendid as the story ends. Still fits. We'll be right back with more of the show. Hello and welcome. And we're back. Honestly, this story does a disservice to all the characters involved. The Doctor does absolutely nothing in this story, and even in other stories where the Doctor is sidelined due to regeneration, he still has some sort of purpose in the story. And I know what you're thinking, he saves them from the hydrogen inrush event, except that obviously the Master's plan was Castrovalva all along, and so he wouldn't have just let the TARDIS get destroyed. The Doctor even says at the end that their landing on Castrovalva was all the Master's doing, so the Doctor didn't do anything. Well, except maybe motivate Shardavan to save the day. Shardavan is our hero, a guy who was made of math. Side note, Mathman would be the worst superhero. Nyssa and Tegan are just there to do the heavy lifting and carry most of the story. Figuratively, and in the case of the Zero Cabinet, literally, but they don't really do much aside from looking for or carrying around the Doctor. I mean, I guess they sort of learn stuff with the database, but other than that, they just exist. Adric I can't even call him annoying because he's not even around for most of the story, even though in normal circumstances he is extremely annoying. And considering that he's powering the block transfer stuff, he has a purpose to be there. It's like you have this whole story to bring us a new Doctor, let us see his personality, and we barely get to experience any of it. Doctor Who and the Auton Invasion, our first foray into the novelizations, and a regeneration story, perfectly got across John Pertwee's portrayal of the Doctor in text form, even giving us that taste of Troughton's at the beginning, even though the third Doctor was sidelined for about 5 chapters. It's like they couldn't afford Davison for the whole shoot, so they just worked around it, and as a result, the Doctor feels like a very weak character in his own story, almost as if Bidmead wasn't told what type of Doctor he was supposed to be, so he just made it so that he had almost no personality to make it easy for the next writer. Even as a novelization written after the fact, it feels like you could have put anyone in the Doctor's role and it wouldn't have been any different. There's nothing distinct about him. And don't even get me started on the various Castrovalvans aside from Shardavan. I mean, I can't even recall anything distinct that they do aside from talk about the hunt and the Portreeve. What action? And I know I use action as the word to describe events that move the story, but there isn't any of that either. Sure, things happen, but since everything was set in motion by the Master, nothing anyone does is driven by anything. It's just them following the script set by the Master. Sure, they might think they have agency, but they don't. It's like the entire story is a zero room. Nothing really happens. Castrovalva didn't really exist, so it wasn't actually destroyed. The Master turns up fine at the end of the season, and they never speak of block transfer again. On the main show, I mean. I'm not sure about the audio dramas or books. No one changes at all, and the only change is that the Doctor's regeneration is stable at the end. And that makes no sense that falling from very high up caused an unstable regeneration, but absorbing radiation and box surgery didn't. I mean, it's not even like it was a different writer which would justify it. But Bidmead just gave us Legopolis, a really good, really exciting story that featured high stakes and a great payoff. Castrovalva has no stakes, and it's not just because I know that the show continues for years after. Nothing ever feels like there are stakes. It's a regeneration story, it's not going to fail, and everyone watching knows that. He's regenerated 3 times at this point. The readers and viewers know that Doctor Who is a cash cow, and not going to end on this story. I get what Bidmead was going for, I really do, but going from the stakes of Legopolis, where parts of the universe were destroyed, like Traken, Nissa's home planet, and all the people she knew and loved, to the Doctor's regeneration is failing, except he's going to be fine, is a bit of a letdown. Unfortunately, I feel about this the same way that I feel about the episode. I don't like it very much. A big issue with this is that Castrovalva is a pretty visual story, and it's hard to show off the stuff like the Zero Room, the weird electric web that Adric is caught in, and Castrovalva in general, in text form. If I hadn't seen the episode prior to reading it, I wouldn't have been able to visualize anything. Even having seen the episode before and knowing what happened, I also found myself confused a lot and having to reread pages because I just couldn't get it. I had never had that problem before with any of the previous novelizations, so I can only assume that it's a fault of the story. Not to mention the complete lack of agency for anyone except the Master and Shardavan, and the fact that none of the established characters do anything interesting. Again, aside from the Master. It's a crappy, slow, and plotting story with no real payoff. They leave and we still don't know who this new Doctor is, just that he thinks that he feels splendid. I mean, it's a far cry from the eccentric bohemian that we had before, whose personality was shown in the first half of his first serial. And the fact that the block transfer stuff just doesn't work anything like it worked in Legopolis is even more baffling, since Bidmead wrote both of the episodes. I mean, I don't really understand all the mathematical stuff, but I feel like math can't just create a town out of nothing using only Adric when it took a whole planet of mathematicians to use it in Legopolis. It just makes me dislike it because it isn't even consistent with the rules set up by Bidmead in the last episode. Normally, that wouldn't be a big deal, and they should be able to stand on their own, but Castrovalva, along with Legopolis and the Keeper of Traken, are supposed to be a trilogy. Admittedly, that's more of a problem with the episode rather than the novelization, but it still stands. And that was Castrovalva. Was it good? I hate saying this about any book, especially a Doctor Who book, but Castrovalva is terrible. It's a terrible episode, and I think that the novelization is even worse, because at least the show had the benefit of the acting talents of Peter Davison, the hilarious hamminess of Anthony Ainley, and the honestly pretty decent effects for the time. Now they're sort of lame, but they hold up surprisingly well for 1982. It was boring, confusing, and an all-around weak story for one of my favorite doctors. And since nothing happened, you can happily skip this one and lose absolutely nothing. I recommend any other Fifth Doctor novelization, though personally I think that the Five Doctors is the best. Overall, Castrovalva sucks in both novelized form and in televised form. Anyway, that's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more of the Literary Lair, you can hit that subscribe button. And if you have any comments or complaints about the video, you can put those in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, show it to your friends and share it around the internet. And maybe consider supporting the show on Patreon. It's been an awesome 5 years, and I can't wait to see what the next 5 will bring. So sorry, mustache. See you next time. The stabilizer needs a recharge. You shouldn't be lying to him. Go away. You're not real, probably a hallucination brought on by the stress. How can you be sure? For one, if it was really you, you'd have teleported in. And second, the security system would have went nuts when you did. You're up here. Maybe so. It doesn't change why I'm here. Michael deserves to know about your condition. So you're the angel on my shoulder. I can't say who I expected, but it definitely wasn't you. Why are you keeping this from him? He can help you. You know that. I've already said why. I don't want him to blame himself. Right. Except I don't think that's the reason. I think that it's something else. He's not gonna blame himself. Michael isn't like that. But you, on the other hand, oh, you are full of guilt. What the hell are you going on about? Michael didn't think that the man in black was that big a deal when it happened, but since he's returned, he's been shook up and you feel guilty about that. That's preposterous. It wasn't even my fault. It was my double. But it was you as well, in a sense. You are technically my creator, even if it was the evil half that gave me life. The work was started by the original Mike Sano. You had a hand in it. And because of that, you hold yourself responsible for his trauma. Which is why you don't want to let him know that you're dying. You don't want to cause him any more stress. Of course, if you don't survive this, it'll cause him even more stress. Alright, fine. I do hold myself responsible for how he's been over the last few months and has been eating away at me, just like the molecular degradation has. Are you happy? I admitted it. Now leave me alone. We're not here to torment you. You have to tell him. Because if this fails and you aren't around when I get back, he might not make it through another confrontation with me. Mike Santa, what's wrong?
Michael, I have a confession to make.